Hey everyone, so just a brief preface before we get into the meat of this video. This video is going to be part of a larger series I have called Head Anatomy 101, in which I'm going to give you guys some tips and tricks and basically a guide on how to approach different things when you're drawing the heads of your characters. So it's going to be things like proportions, in which I'm going to look into obviously general proportions, but also ways to do age and some other little niche things to consider when you're looking at the proportions of your characters. And then we'll go into some more individual videos separate on the eyes, the mouth, and the nose, which I consider the most important parts to look at. And then we'll cap off the series with a final head study in which we kind of put everything all together, and I'll address some other little features, including things like highlights and some rendering tips as well. So yeah, let's get right into it. So I'm sure if you've watched any kind of head tutorial, you know that the best place to start with the head shape structure is a circular shape, just like this one here. And I'll be sure to get the reference paint up as well so you guys can see what I'm getting up to. And we'll place in our first few guidelines here. So I do a few on the other side of the head, just because our heads aren't perfectly circular, and then I do the halfway line down the middle of the face. And of course I can already tell this isn't exactly symmetrical, but I reckon I'll go back and adjust that later. I'm going to draw in the rough jaw shape. So I'm just going to use very straight lines here, just as a guide. You can be as kind of cartoonish or as realistic as you want. So the actual distance we're going to be looking for between the bottom of this circle and the actual bottom of the jaw is roughly that the circle will take around 2/3 of the head, and this extra jaw section I'm adding will take around 1/3, up another 1/3 of the head, sorry. But obviously, again, these can be adjusted by the kind of proportions of your character. If you want a really strong jaw, really masculine character, you can bring that length a lot further. Or if you want someone who's a lot more childlike, you can bring that distance much smaller, really emphasize that circular head shape. And also that'll be making this guy he's going to be a guy. So all the proportions will be the same. As humans, our proportions are generally quite similar. It'll just be really the shape of the jaw and the kind of, the shapes of other features, which will really lend itself back to, this is kind of a bit of a thing of shape language. I'm just going to fix this one up here. But harder lines are typically more masculine features you want to use in your male characters, whereas softer kind of lines, so softer curves, we're going to make a more female character. So as you can see, yeah, with this softer kind of jawline, lends itself to more feminine face, obviously female characters, or just someone you want to convey as kind of softer and not as hard, which I guess lends itself back to the idea of shape language when you're looking at characters design. So I'll just make a quick note of that here, but obviously straight, rigid lines will be a hard kind of energy, and the round curves will be a soft energy. So now we're going to move on to some other guidelines that are important on the face, such as eyes, the nose, etc. So the first, this halfway line across the face, this is the most important because this is where the center of the eye line sits. For your character. I'm going to duplicate this as well, and we're going to draw this character from both the front view and a profile view, which I think is an important exercise because it helps you maintain consistency when you draw your characters from different angles. So I'll just sketch out this jawline as well. I'm trying to be consistent in where the jaw turns, where that sharp corner is, and also the bottom of the jaw as well. But I'm going to adjust things bit by bit as I see fit. Another thing to remember, the lasso tool is your best friend. Don't be afraid to select and move things around you're not happy with. I think that's one of the best parts of digital art, that you can really just chop and change, make big surgical decisions whenever you want. Please use that to your advantage. Don't be afraid to just chop and change, whenever you see fit. So we're going to use this halfway line as a base. Now we're going to draw in where the nose and mouth sit. So the nose is about halfway between the bottom of the jaw and the eye line. The mouth is about halfway between these two lines. And you've got the eyes, which is halfway between the halfway line and the outside of the face. Obviously keep in mind that these are just like general realistic proportions, and they can be adjusted for your style, because obviously you don't have to be consistent. But obviously realism is a really good basis for knowing how you want to stylize your work. So we'll draw in the ears here as well. So the ears normally sit between where this eye line is. They start at the top and they finish kind of at the bottom of your nose. We'll just fix up some of these guidelines as well. I'm not really happy with the shape of this head. Round it out a bit, lower it a bit to make it a bit more accurate. And yeah, now I can shave off these kind of extra areas of the circle. yeah, don't be afraid to do as many guidelines as you want to make things work for you. I'll probably have to adjust the top of this other head as well to also make that consistent. Yep. I'm noticing this bottom jaw is probably a bit far forward as well, but we can look at that later. So now I'm going to block in some other guidelines as well. So the brow ridge, I find that quite important, and also the hairline. So the hairline sits halfway between roughly the eye line and the top of the head. But of course, that can be adjusted. You want someone with a receding hairline or look really young. It's obviously another thing you adjust as well. By now, I start to erase a lot of these guidelines. I am a more experienced artist, so I very much just estimate things based on what I can see. I like the clean thing of the face, but if you need these guidelines to keep working, just remember to keep them there. Just keep working. From here, we'll actually start to block out the actual features of the face. So I'm going to just draw a rough eye shape around each of these centers. I'm going to treat these centers as if they were the pupil of each eye. And obviously I already raising these ones, but please keep them there if you want them as a guideline. I'm just using very straight, rigid lines to block out a rough area for where the eye is. And from here, I'll draw in some rough eyebrows as well. I like to use the lasso tool and just draw in eyebrows. I kind of don't really like wasting time sketching out the whole thing. And we'll just fill these in here. Yeah, I can already tell that this rough sketch that I'm doing is asymmetrical, but we'll get along and we'll use the lasso tool to fix it up a bit later. That's not really the priority here. Before we go on, I'm just going to block in some irises pretty roughly. It doesn't have to be perfect, just enough to give a general shape. So using that little mark for the nose as a basis, just going to start blocking out areas of the nostrils, mark out either side of the edge of the nose, and then start drawing down from the actual brow ridge and make a little connection just to flesh out the nose area. Yeah, there's way too much space on the right side of his face, but we will fix it up just in a minute. And we'll just finish off this mouth here as well. Just a few simple lines and some kind of little markings other end. Gives a pretty realistic lip shape, which I find. So, and I like to do the top and the bottom of the lip as well to make, just a little simple stylization of the lip shape. From here, just do some pretty simple lines for the ears as well. Just diagonal going out from this side of the head to the top of the ear. And we'll just thicken it with a bit of line weight too. I'm going to go now and actually just kind of thicken up some of the lines around the actual chin and the jawline, just to kind of finalize the character shapes. Just finalize the shape I actually have for this character. Actually need to fix that one up a bit. Yep. So now we're actually going to draw in the hairline of this character as well. So in line with the proportions that we had earlier. Especially with a male character, we kind of want a very square shape as a general rule. So I'm going to bring the lines up, and there should be like 3 identifiable curves from this. So there's the curve that is in the center of the head that finishes in that kind of halfway marking, that hairline that I said, and curves up to the corner of each kind of widow's peak. And there's the other 2 curves that start at kind of the top of each ear and bend in to join that point. I'm just filling in some like rough hair shapes now, but it doesn't really matter too much what I'm doing here. Just kind of keeping in mind about that rough hairline shape I had before. I think probably now is a good time to fix up some of the proportions. Flipping the canvas is a good place to start to see where I've gone wrong. But especially with that area that I had that was way too big on the right side of the face, I'm going to adjust by... I'll just lasso this jawline and I'll distort it, bring it over to the left a little bit, and I'll probably bring a lot of the facial features over to this left side as well. Clearly that eyebrows, too far over. Nose and the lips as well need to be brought over a tad, which really reinforces the importance of flipping your canvas whenever you can, especially with proportions. I think now that I can bring, yeah, these ears also needed a bit of adjustment. But yeah, this character looks far more symmetrical now that I've brought those features more over to the actual center plane of the face. Yeah, just don't be afraid to chop and change. Use the lasso tool to just move big areas of your sketch. It's really okay. There's no rules. You can make as many mistakes as you want. I've even, had to redraw over this ear to make it look a bit better. But hopefully now that I flip it back, yes, he looks far more proportional, far better. There's obviously still other things. I think it looks like his right eye, from looking at him, is that top eyelid kind of sagging a bit more, but whatever, we'll just go on because the proportions are really the thing we're looking at in here. I'll just fix up this hair just to make it a little bit more interesting. Yeah, I like that. And I might as well fix up this eyelid while we're at it. But of course, all these things that I'm kind of looking at as mistakes now, they can definitely be features of a character, make it look a bit more interesting. I think asymmetricality can also be a really interesting character trait. We'll probably draw a lot of these features over to the profile view now. So I'll just draw a few lines across. Just make a few markings here, like on the jaw. That's where the nose should be. That's where the lips should be. So just to keep everything in mind. And of course, you won't get all the information on how to draw from the side now. But as long as you have those guidelines there, you can work with it. So yeah, I'm just going to give this brow ridge another go. You can see actually the part where the bridge sits closest to the face is actually a bit lower than I thought. It's just in line with the center of the eyes. But I'm just going to mark out the eyebrow here as, I find it's a pretty good guide. I'm just going to draw it kind of a similar shape to how it is from the front view, but I'm going to actually just use lasso and just distort it to flatten it out a bit. They're not as wide, obviously, when you look at them from the side, the eyebrows. And now I'm going to look to actually draw in the eye shape, and I'm going to make sure that I draw it roughly the same width as it actually is from from a profile view, this kind of triangular shape. I'm actually going to draw it like one width of this eye, and use that as a distance from the actual front plane of the face. That's how I like to usually set back my eyes from the front of the face. But of course, yeah, just for styles and other kind of factors. But yeah, I find that's from my studies of other realistic portraits. Yeah, it usually sits about one eye length back from where the nose bridge sits. So I'll just draw this in now. I'll bring the brow ridge up a bit further than the actual front plane of the face that I've done before, which means I'll probably move this eyebrow forward a bit later. As I start drawing the nostril here, I start bringing the nose down to connect it, just a rough shape. There's obviously other things you can adjust. Maybe you want it hooked or curved, or you want to make that actual the nose bone, bring it out a bit further. Obviously, great chance for characterization here. And so I'm going to start moving more towards the mouth area now. We're going to use our halfway guideline now. I'm just drawing a rough lip shape. Just make sure that the bottom and top lips, they're going to stick out at the kind of apex of each lip, and they're going to have that little insert obviously where the actual lips meet. But I think as I'm drawing them now, they're probably a bit small, but I'll go to them later. But as you can see, I'm kind of just using half of that shape I made from the front view, and I'm just using that as the kind of same direction as the line I'm doing from the side. So we'll just do the chin here. The chin also does stick out. And now I'll just use this to fix up a little the shape of the jawline and add in the ears. So the ears, you can just use a pretty rough general shape for this. I don't really think they're too important in a drawing. I usually just use the rule that they sit behind the halfway line on the from a profile view. You can kind of put them really anywhere you want behind the halfway line for any kind of stylistic purpose to maintain that kind of still realistic element. But they really doesn't really matter too much on the specifics. I'm just going to fix up the nose now. I definitely made it a bit too flat for this character, so I'm just going to distort it and bring that actual bottom of the nose and the nostrils out. And obviously just erase a few of these guidelines. Something also interesting to talk about, I think, is so I'm erasing all these guidelines. The front plane from the nose to the chin. See, if I just draw the line in here, you'll see, Obviously, mine's a diagonal slope, and the chin and lips are further back. But obviously, some characters like this, they can have their lips and their chin further forward. It really depends on what you're trying to portray in your character. Different proportions can be super interesting, just as long as they're within the plane of realism. Mine weren't really in line, so like I said before, I'm just going to fix up this kind of area under the nose and bring these lips a bit fuller, just to make the proportions match a bit better. And I'll erase some of these guidelines here. And I am just going to go back through and fix up this jawline, because I feel like it's quite straight for a character. And I prefer a bit more realism when it works. I know the straight jawline can look really good, but I think with the style I've got going now, I need to smooth out that line just a little bit, so we can maintain the kind of masculine features we've got going for this guy, but still make it not look like he's just got, you know, a razor blade for a jaw. And yeah, after I clean up these guidelines, we'll start going in with the actual hairline. So we'll use that first measurement we had before, the halfway point. We're going to try and imitate those same curves that are on the front of the face. It uses that half shape. We'll make the curve a bit more dramatic on that side of the head this time, but we'll keep that same half of the curve here. Now I'll just flesh out the rest of the head, give it a bit of a neck, just so when we actually draw on the hair, it gives a bit more of a base for us to work with. And we're going to give some suggestions of some of the muscles in the neck as well. I think this line under the chin is a pretty good one. And that little kind of, just the back of the neck, you want that diagonal line that joins, that the curve goes in before it goes down, back out to the neck. Just tidying a few of these things up. I think, yeah, just make it a little bit bigger at the back. As you can see by now, most of my lines are pretty much erased. All the guidelines kind of gone. Just adding a few details here and there, like that upper eyelid, I always find is pretty good. And so now go in and we'll just add in kind of a similar hair structure to what I did before. I think it's not quite the exact same, but we'll just do it for the purpose of consistency across our character. Yep, so now that we've got our profile on our front view done, we're just going to have a quick check of these proportions again. Obviously looking at where the halfway lines are, both horizontal and vertical, where the nose sits, where the mouth sits, and just consider how it all works across the figure. So now as I clear this off, the first thing I want to look at is the distance between the eyes and the eyebrows. So I'll just clear this out. So the general rule I like to use is that the higher eyebrows are away from the eyes, the younger a character looks. So as I bring these eyebrows further up, now, the character already will look slightly younger. Of course, it won't be exactly proportional with this style, but I'll adjust the eyes as well, and I'll actually enlarge these eyes, make them a bit bigger. They'll probably look quite cartoonish when I distort them. But the idea is generally that as these eyes look a bit larger and the distance between the top of the eyelids and the eyebrow increases as well, the character just has a younger appearance. If you look at any kind of picture of a child compared to an adult, or if you look at a lot of drawings people like to do, they've got their eyebrows far closer to the character, just like I brought them down now, the characters have a far more youthful appearance. It comes into effect with stylization as well, where a lot of artists like to make especially typically very masculine characters, like to make their eyes very, very thin as well, as a way of showing how much older they are compared to a younger character. And this is also true for the distance between the mouth and the nose. So if I bring this mouth up or closer to the nose, you can see the character already looks a bit more smug, but also a bit younger. So that larger chin space also kind of makes the character look younger as well. It's somewhat a rule about bringing features closer to the center of the face and bringing that wider area outside. Kind of imitates, I guess, the kind of look of a baby. You got kind of like that baby fat, that more space that needs to kind of shrink away as someone becomes closer to adult age. This one is less kind of consistent, but I find sometimes also lengthening the actual nose of the character can be a sign of age as well. Obviously, everyone has very tiny, small noses when they're little babies. So bringing a wider nose shape can also be another way to increase the age of a character. Another quick thing to consider is also just how you're going to draw the lines on your character for age. Obviously, you've got this sinking in all these different areas. You'll have sunken chin. You'll have these lines that come down by the nasolabial folds. I can't quite remember the exact name, but yeah, near the mouth, between the eyebrows, and other kind of wrinkles that'll go across the face. That's and other important things to consider when you're looking at age. As just a final tip. So yeah, that'll finish off this first tutorial on head anatomy and just the general proportions of the head. If you have any other questions, such as maybe any slight differences I might have overdone in terms of gender or anything else, feel free to let me know. And yeah, stay tuned for the next tutorial, which will be on eyes.